Hi and welcome to my channel. I have a very special guest for us today. I'm interviewing Andrew Chaplin, and Andy is an organizer for Tuned In Events. It's his own company, and he holds psychic events in the southeast of England. He's had paranormal experiences from an early age, and he's also been to development circles. His psychic fairs have grown over the years, incorporating many other things, which Andy will tell us about shortly. And he's going to do some predictions for us for 2023. So that's enough from me. Over to you, Andy. So, Andy, how did you get started with all of this?
That's probably the most common question I get asked. So I can go into the earliest memories of how I got into this. So my background is I grew up in a Church of England environment, and I went to a Church of England school. But before this happened, there is one particular memory that I had being in an upstairs area in a cot. And yes, I do remember that. I remember exactly where the bedroom was, where the cot was. I was lying down. There was lights coming from the upstairs landing into the room, so it was illuminated, kind of dim lighting. And there was a big teddy bear to the left of me. As I was lying there, I heard very distinctly, like a very deep male voice saying, "Hello, what's your name?" and I kind of like and it's such a clear memory that's just burnt into my memory. I've remembered it ever since. "Hello, what's your name?" Now I it seemed to come from the direction of the teddy bear. What was going on, knowing what I know now, is that I believe it was my spirit guide, and I think he was trying to test whether I was ready to communicate with spirit. And they were using the teddy bear as like a conduit or something to kind of for me to focus on, to talk to, because most kids like teddy bears, and teddy bears are kind of cute and fluffy and that kind of thing. So I think if it was like a full apparition, I might have been too scared, but they were using the teddy bear as to kind of focus in on that. I think if I'd started a conversation with the bear, I would have ended up like the kid from Sixth Sense. I think I would have kind of blown open my third eye and started seeing spirits all over the place. What actually happened was that it actually freaked me out, and I kind of wanted it to just go away, and it kept going, "Hello, what's your name?" I just go away, hid under the covers, go away, leave me alone, leave me alone. And it did, it backed off. So you're probably aware of like spiritual contracts, like souls coming to earth, and they have some kind of like mission, or they got some kind of contract with spirit before they come into this planet. I think that's what I've had. In fact, I know that's what I've had. I've somewhere along the lines in the universe, I signed up to having some kind of psychic stroke spiritual work to do on this planet. And I think the spirit guys were kind of like, right, let's get him done early. Let's get him in early, so let's try the teddy bear thing. That didn't work. That didn't kind of go according to plan, but that's fine. They respected my free will. My free will was I don't want to go down this direction just yet. I'm not ready for it. So they backed off. Next weird thing that happened, and this was less of a scary thing, it was more of like a questioning reality thing. So it was around about class one, which is like the first class in the UK school system for our international viewers. Class one, I had a dream that I was sent into the library for being naughty. I felt it was unjustified because I wasn't a particularly naughty kid. I was well behaved, and I was sent into the library at school to do some work, to sit down and kind of like work on a table in the library. In the dream, there was a blonde-haired girl with a load of beakers and a water jug stacked up, and she came from this particular entrance in a corridor, walked along, and we had a conversation about, "Oh, why are you here? Have you been naughty?" kind of thing. And I said, "No, I hadn't." Blah blah blah. We just had a conversation, and she walked off. 2 weeks later, exactly the same thing in exactly the same way happened. So I was sent into the library for being naughty. Lo and behold, this blonde-haired girl with the water jug and the beakers stacked up walked along. We had the same conversation, and as this was happening, like the hairs was going on, I was just thinking, this is weird, this is freaky. Exactly the same conversation, and then she walked off. Okay, why did I have that? I believe I had that experience because I was just at the early stages of growing up in a Church of England school. So I was about to have and I would call it indoctrination or programming or the system way of thinking that this is the Christian point of view. But something else was going, actually, there might be another point of view, maybe something along the lines of predictions or foreseeing or kind of knowing things that are going to happen then do happen, and then how real is reality anyway? If something happens in a certain way, is everything kind of is everything free will, or is everything predetermined? Now I couldn't comprehend that in my little mind when I was in year one, but it certainly kind of made me feel what is going on in terms of reality. So yeah, those I think are my two key early experiences.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing that. And I think nowadays it certainly seems to be more popular in spiritual circles, the idea of soul contracts and the fact that we did make agreements for exactly the deal that we get and the things that
Yeah,
we have to do.
yeah.
Um, so, when you were older, presumably you developed these gifts. You acknowledge and recognize that you have them. What did you do? How
Right.
did you develop?
So, I've always had an interest in anything ghosts, paranormal, aliens, woo-woo stuff, I suppose we could call it, under the umbrella term woo-woo. So one of my favorite programs was Strange But True with Michael Aspel. I don't know if you remember seeing that. I used to love that program. It's still on YouTube. If people want to go and view some old clips of it, Strange But True, it's amazing. It's slightly
Yeah,
cheesy, it's slightly dated, but it's fantastic. So
yeah,
then around about sixth form, which is kind of like the later stages, I suppose international uh, viewers would kind of see it as kind of almost like a college type of age. I would pick up local haunted books of Hertfordshire and Essex. So I come from Hertfordshire, and a friend of mine who's also into ghosts and stuff, we would pick up these books, we would read up on local haunted locations like Borley Rectory, for instance, burnt down now, but that was like hugely spooky at the time. And we'd go to these places and we'd have a lot of weird kind of vibes and things going on with those. Yeah, that's a whole different story. That could go off in a different direction because there's some interesting things that happened around about the time that I was going to these places. We could go into that later. But the long and the short of it is around about the year 2000. So this is slightly beyond sixth form and more into college and uni days. I just decided to do something with it. This was actually the era of Derek Acora and Most Haunted and Predictions. There's a show called Predictions on Sky, the very early years of Derek Acora, and I just thought, this I wonder if there's something really out there. I wonder if I've got any kind of psychic inclinations myself. And I actually had a cat that went missing at the same time, sadly, and I went to go and see a psychic to try and locate where he was. Now, although I didn't actually find the cat, she predicted a lot of things that came true or were going on in my life. Like, she was quite accurate, and I thought, this really intrigues me. Like, is there something out there? So I joined a couple of development circles, one in Hoddesdon and one in Cheshunt area in Hertfordshire. And at the same time as doing this, I was also joining chat rooms. Now, back then, we're talking early 2000s, so it was dial up. It was incredibly slow and it would cut out regularly. But I joined these psychic chat rooms, and somebody said to me, "Can you do me a reading?" And at this point, it wasn't video. We didn't really have that. It was literally just text on a screen. And I thought, I don't really know what I'm doing. So they said, "Oh, just relax and just see what you get." So I relaxed and kind of like, I started getting things. I started getting words or images, and I just started typing. And the weird thing is, the more I started typing, the more I was feeling and getting these things. And it turned out that these things that I was getting was true. And people were like, "Oh, that's a bit freaky, a bit amazing." And I became almost addicted to it, not in a a crackhead type way, but I really enjoyed it. And I would spend an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes on the trot just doing these readings. And it was like a psychic gym. It's like a psychic workout. The more you do it, the better you get, and the better you get, the more you do it. And I was finding I was getting really quite clear and fast things. At the same time, at the development circles, the actual physical spiritualist circles, like some people were plodding along and they were getting, oh, I'm getting the color red, and I'm getting your nan here, she looks like this. So I was kind of on the fast track with it. And it got to the point where with the spiritualist circles, it got to the point where I felt I was going too quickly. I was getting frustrated by the people that were, and it's no fault of their own. I was getting frustrated by kind of, oh, I'm getting the color red and I've got a sunflower, whereas I was going. So basically, it got to the point where I then kind of stepped away from the spiritualist circles, and they were extremely useful, and I do thank them for helping me develop. I then started joining. I think I contacted a psychic fair in London, and that kick-started the psychic fair side of things. And then from one psychic fair, it led to.
Just before you go into that,
Yeah,
because you and all of my guests have got multi talents. So just for a little laugh,
yeah,
you also do impressions, don't
I
you?
do. Yeah,
Would you like to do? And I'm not going to tell the audience who you're doing, but do you just want to give us a little example or two of
yeah.
some of the impressions that you do?
Yeah, so this kind of started off at school, actually. So I would take the mickey out of teachers. It was just a way to kind of break the ice with people around me. So we do this thing of we'd sit outside like the 3-story building, and as the teachers were walking along and chatting with pupils, I would do their voice in terms of what they were saying. And so one voice that people may understand, your viewers, would be the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who may or may not. And they come back into number 10. He's waiting in the periphery for Richie to move on. So yeah, that's one of my ones.
Absolutely brilliant. And is there an American one that you do as well?
Oh, there's quite a few. I mean, we could go into talking to people coming back. We could have Trump, maybe Donald, for 2024. Joe Biden he's done a terrible, terrible job in the United States, and it's time for a change. Okay, so bring back the Trump, bring back Donald.
That's excellent. That's really amazing. Well done. You might
I'm
get
available
some
for freelance voiceover work as well.
Okay, so if you want to go back to telling us how you started with your psychic fairs.
Yeah. So so it was very much a case of joining a lot of other people's psychic fairs, and this is how I met you as well, Vina, one of Chris's fairs in London. And as you know, the more fairs you do, the more people you meet, and then you meet regular faces, and then you start networking, and that leads you to other places. And I was doing all these fairs all over the place. Now, I've also got a background in graphic design, so my main training and my main thing in life was graphic design and visual arts and that kind of thing. And what I was noticing is that with other psychic fairs, they didn't really have much of an emphasis on marketing and design. So sometimes they would have like a flimsy old placard that you could barely read, and I've been, and you've probably been to these places where it's a sign that you can't see, or they've used a font that's unreadable, or sometimes when they use like outline text where you can't view it from a distance, or they use a tiny sign and you drive past it and you can't see it. And I kept saying to these organizers, why don't you invest in banners and signs and really get some people coming in? And do you know what? They ignored me, and they just thought they knew it all, and they did their own thing, and they carried on. And I thought, well, do you know what? If you're going to ignore my advice, I reckon I can do a better job. So I decided in around about the year 2011 to do my own thing. I set up tune-in events, and I used my graphic design skills to create posters and large banners. And you got to kind of like invest in things to get things out. So I invested money in getting big banners, and you know what? It's paying off. So our events are becoming hugely popular. They're getting very busy. And we're getting quite a big following now, which is quite nice. So yeah, that's where I am now with tuned in events.
That's brilliant news. People seem surprised sometimes that these events are held in pubs, because you think pubs were the last place on earth where you're going to have a bit of peace and quiet and a spiritual atmosphere, and yet they seem to be some of the busiest events, don't they, when they're in pubs?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, pubs are the communal hub of towns and villages. They are, you know, the community centres, and pubs are dying in this country. It's really sad, actually. There's I don't know how many thousands or hundreds are closing every month, but it's quite a high number of pubs are shutting down. And I think there's such an embedded part of British society. I can't imagine a life without pubs. We need our community pubs. Restaurants, not quite the same. Cafes and coffee shops, not quite the same. There's nothing quite the same experience as pubs. And with the noise factor and the rowdy factor, I found that, certainly working in pubs myself, and my other readers have said the same thing. When you're focused on doing a reading, you zone everything out around you. It's like there is noise and you're aware of noise, but if you're focused, you're focusing on the person you're with and the cards in front of you, or however you're working, and you zone it out. You just learn to zone it out. And we're quite lucky. Most of the pubs that we use are fairly big. We don't do really the weekends. We do more weekdays, so it's less busy and less rowdy. And we tend to use either function rooms or corners. So it's we do have that privacy aspect. So we've not found it a problem in terms of noise and rowdiness. There have been some pubs that have been too rowdy, and we've had to cut it short. We've learned to avoid Fridays and Saturdays if possible. You also get the lad element on the Fridays. Oh, also it's about then. It's like at night. So we tend to kind of like, we do have a bit of banter sometimes, where we tend to kind of like stick it on the chin sometimes. But if it's done in good faith, it's fine. We've mostly had kind of people just having a bit of a laugh, really. We sometimes have issues with, we have had the born agains sometimes causing issues. They tend to be okay, but they tend to try and close our events down, which is slightly irritating. We've yet to have the placards outside, but they do sometimes kind of try and call the pubs to try and get us cancelled, which is quite annoying. We don't go to their churches to cancel their Sunday services, so leave us alone out of our pubs.
Don't be born again somewhere else, eh?
Yeah, they could be born again anywhere else, but at any other time. And you know, just stay out of our business and we'll stay out of yours. So, yeah.
Sounds like good advice. Now, the readings that you do, could you tell us maybe one or two stories about some pertinent ones where you've really helped people out?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of like a quick note, really, as we're growing up through society, the science basically says that this is all mumbo jumbo and it doesn't exist, and then the church says that it's all demons and devils and it's all dark. I can tell you from doing my readings, if I'm really connecting with spirit, I try and work on a love vibration, and it should be about positivity and it should be about helping people. So that's kind of like where we're coming from in tuning events and myself. So one thing that I really enjoyed the outcome of was, there was a couple that came to me that had a missing cat. Again, the missing cat thing seems to be a running thing here. They came to me about a missing cat in Hoddesdon, and they're really distraught, bless them. And they gave me a picture of the cat, because I do psychometry, which is kind of reading off objects or photos, and I'm trying to tune in on the cat, and I kind of felt I was tuning into things from the cat's perspective. And I felt the cat was still alive. That's what I felt. And I started describing this low down kind of like dark brown brick wall, and I got this feeling of being scared, suddenly startled by a dog, by like a big dog on the other side of a fence. And I felt like I'm running and I'm kind of scarpering and I'm trying to get away from this dog, and then I'm becoming disorientated. I don't quite know where I am. And then I got this image of like a row of garages and things like that. So I gave this kind of description of what I think the cat was experiencing. I said, don't worry, I really do feel this cat, you'll find it. I really do find that, really do feel that this cat will be found. And I didn't actually charge them. Like most of the time I charge people for readings, but I felt on this particular occasion, they were in a distraught state. I said, don't worry about it. I just hope you find the cat. So anyway, they went away, and I just crossed my fingers and hoped they'd find the cat. 2 weeks later, it was about 2 or 3 weeks later, they contacted me and said, thank you so much, Andy. We found our cat, and it's really weird. Where we found the cat, there was a low down brick wall, and in the vicinity there was a large dog, and it was barking a lot along the fence. And where we found our cat was actually near kind of like these garages, these row of garages. So it's like everything that I said luckily, cross fingers, are checked out, and they found their cat, and that was quite a nice little story.
Yeah, they're always really happy with things like that.
Yeah, yeah,
That really makes, it's not just making someone stay, is it? It's like their cat is with them for life, and
yeah.
just brings so much joy. So that's lovely. Um, Now I'm wondering, being a psychic and a psychic medium yourself, do you have any predictions or feelings about things that are going to be happening this year in 2023? Would you like to tell us
Yeah,
about?
I can go into that. So some of this is kind of feelings and intuition, and some of it is jumping down rabbit holes and the information that I look at and the videos I look at. So it's difficult to discern between what I've viewed already in terms of information and where my gut feeling is going. So there's so much going on in this world. The alien thing seems to be ramping up a lot. A lot of people are seeing things in the sky, and a lot of people are having UFO encounters and odd encounters. My feeling is that although I do believe that ETs and multidimensionals and aliens are real and probably will show themselves, I kind of feel that there's something called Project Bluebeam, which, if people jump down that rabbit hole, is about the idea of a fake alien invasion to help bring in what some people might call, or kind of like a control system for humanity, using kind of like a fake alien invasion. So I think they're kind of gearing up. But when I say they, I would classify the global elitists, the Illuminati, the ones at the top of the food chain, in charge of this planet. I think they're going to try to ramp up the alien thing a bit more. They're also going to try and do more control systems over planet Earth. So, for instance, we've got these 15-minute cities and these 20-minute cities that they're talking about. And they're also talking about these carbon lockdowns. So this isn't so much really kind of predictions in terms of intuition and feeling. This is more in terms of information that you can find out there. But on an intuitive level, I think there's going to be some pushback. This is the good news, because this can go in quite a dark direction. The long and the short of it, the bottom line is, I believe humanity, the human race, is at war. I think it's a war between good and evil, light and dark, a controlling force that wants that wants to enslave humanity. But there's also like a light force that wants to free humanity and ascend our minds, make us more spiritual and more psychic, more in tune with nature, ourselves, and everything else. And so there's this battle going on. So the controlling lot will continue to try and control humanity, and the people like us, the awake lot, are trying to burst out of this, shatter people's illusions, shatter people's bubbles of what they think is real. I think after the whole COVID situation, the whole COVID scenario, where people have been fed BS basically in so many different ways, and so many what we call conspiracy theories are now turning out to becoming true, and were true all along. People's reality are shattered now. For people like me and you, Vina, we kind of know much of this already, and we're kind of aware of this. And for us, it's kind of like a sigh. It's like a kind of thing. But for other people, it's just, oh my God, my whole reality is shattered. What is real? I don't know what's real anymore. So there's going to be, I think there is going to be an awakening. I think some people are going to be awakened quicker than others. And I think that some people are going to be left behind in their own little reality. And I think when things really go pear-shaped, I think they're going to be in a situation of they don't know what to think or what to believe anymore. The food crisis that's going on at the moment, with the lack of fruit and vegetables and that kind of thing, and the food missing from shelves, shall we say. Some people say that's a result of Brexit, but I don't think it is, because in America, Biden's also warning about food shortages. So I don't think it is to do with that. I think this is planned. I think that the evil ones that are at the top are slowly going to try and starve humanity. I think they're slowly going to try and destroy the food systems, and our farming and our agriculture is definitely being attacked. In the Netherlands, they're trying to shut down the food supply, and that is very much like a hub of growing food in the EU, certainly the Netherlands. In the UK, the government is buying farmland from farmers in the UK and doing nothing with it. So they're going to farms, they're saying, we need to buy your agricultural land. They give a decent offer to the farmers, and then they're doing nothing with it. So our farmland, our food supply is being shut down gradually. So I think what we're going to have to do is localization. So the evil agenda want globalization. They want a big new world order government that controls everything. And they essentially want to bring in what I believe is some kind of fascist communist society, global system that
But
shuts
you know,
everything.
Andy, even now,
Mm.
after COVID and everything that's happened, it seems as though there are a majority of people who trust the government so
Yeah.
much and say, oh no, they wouldn't do that. They couldn't possibly do that. You
Yeah.
know, they've kept them locked up in their houses.
Yeah.
They've made shut their mouths,
Yeah. Shut them
not
up.
see their relatives,
Yeah.
not be present for weddings and funerals. And
Yeah.
you know, I had somebody ask me, a friend asked me about her wedding, and having it during that time where they had to wear a mask. And I said, are you seriously considering having a wedding now when in all of your pictures for the rest of your life, you're
You
all
have a
going to
mask
have
on.
beautiful
Yeah.
bridesmaids, they're not going to look so beautiful because they're going to have their beauty covered with these masks and then look at those pictures for the rest of their
Yeah.
lives. You know, I said, do you not just want to wait for a little while for all of that to clear away so that then your wedding photos are going to be something you can be proud of forever? Um, and I think it's surprising that people are not questioning so
Mm.
much. I mean, you know, it may be that there are other reasons why they're not kind of alert, awake, intelligent, and looking at what is actually happening and to what degree it's helping people. Because
Mm.
I hear other people talking who I feel have a real passion for humanity and are saying, you know, they can't treat people like this. People shouldn't be treated like this. People should be respected.
Mm.
And those people are labeled all kinds of things that are not very nice.
Mm.
And then the people that are not taking care of us and doing whatever they like,
Yeah.
people are trusting them and absolutely following their every word.
Yeah.
I find that quite amazing.
But I
And
think the
then
good news,
when people tell the truth, they're called conspiracy theories. Yeah.
yeah, I prefer the term truth researcher or agenda researcher, because there's this old thing, well, new thing actually, of what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth. And these days it's about 6 months. So all of the things that were deemed conspiracy theory are now coming out. Yeah, I mean, Epstein Island,
True.
people used to talk about, you know, Satanist pedophiles ruling the world, and that was crazy conspiracy theory. Then Epstein Island happened. And notice how the Ghislaine Maxwell case has all been buried now. That's all kind of mentioned once and then disappeared. And it's all about distractions. People are being distracted constantly. And I think the UFO thing is part of that. People seeing what I think, on the generally speaking, might be more man-made things. That's not to say UFOs don't exist, because they do, but I think there is a push behind the scenes to make people think a certain way about certain things. But here's where my intuition and a prediction is, where I do have, and I do think it's on the positive side, because we don't want to depress people too much. I actually think people are waking up, and I think it's getting to the point where even the ones that were wearing their masks and having their jabs and following the orders, now it's coming out that people like Matt Hancock was giggling away like a little child about making people more scared. I don't know if you came across this news article. He was basically, a journalist was writing a biography about Matt Hancock, working with him. He gave her access to his WhatsApp messages. She then blew the lid on those because it was in the public interest, and it all went public. And in these WhatsApp messages, Matt Hancock was giggling with somebody about creating new variants, new COVID variants, to quote, scare the pants off the public in the UK. So whilst people's grandparents, they weren't allowed to see their grandparents in care homes, and whilst people were on hospital beds with ventilators, Matt Hancock was giggling like a little child. Now this has come out in public. I think there is a U-turn. I think even the masked, jabbed people are now thinking, actually, these people are a bunch of bleep. I won't say it on your show, but put in an expletive in that little bleep. And I think now there's going to be a big lack of trust in the government, and there is a lack of trust in the authorities. And I think that's very much a good thing that we need right now.
And I think probably it's true to say that we need each other more now
Yes.
as well. That we
Yeah.
need to build and work with communities and
Yeah.
try and find harmony rather than
Yeah.
allow ourselves to keep being divided on the basis of whatever divisions are
Yeah.
being put
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
us. Stop
100%.
seeing
This
divisions and
100%.
start seeing.
The dark side want globalization. The dark side want an all-encompassing new world order, communist fascist system. I think the escape route for humanity is the opposite: localization. Get to know your local community. Maybe start thinking about a local currency, because the banks are going a little bit squiffy at the moment. That many people have predicted for a long time that the banks are going to crash, and there's going to be a bank.
I had been told about the fact that banks probably would be crashing about 30 years ago. I think it could have
Yeah,
been longer.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then later on, somebody else happened to be saying, there's no money for pensions. He was in pensions, and his sister was telling him he's left it because he could see there wasn't going to be any money. So there are some people who have known for a very, very
oh
long
yeah,
time
yeah,
about the fact that there would be, not enough money for pensions, about the fact that the banks wouldn't have enough money, and
yeah,
also the other thing that you mentioned, that I heard about the food banks, that the
yeah,
UN
yeah,
were having food storage.
yeah,
I've done a video that I've done predictions on for 2023, and I wondered then, if they've been storing food for 30 years,
yeah,
how much food have they got?
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah. And there's this thing about storing seeds in the Antarctic as well, like
Yeah.
in case anything goes really, really pear-shaped. So yeah, the it's all kind of it's kind of like a controlled demolition. But I think there is an escape route for humanity. Localization, get to know the community, start growing your own food, start getting in contact with farmers. Farmers need to start regrowing. Stop selling your farmland to government for them to do nothing with it. Otherwise,
Do you
we
know,
can't get
Andy, that there are they've put laws or bylaws in place in many different countries, but they're actually not allowed to. So it's not a question of
Yeah,
the farmers choosing;
yeah, there's
they're
that as
actually
well.
not allowed to grow. And
Yeah,
they're saying why? They want to grow because that's how they're
yeah,
earning their money
yeah,
and
yeah,
their
yeah,
living.
yeah,
And they're being told no, you can't. So
yeah.
who's telling them no, they can't? And what's
Exactly.
for that? If there are food shortages, surely they should be.
Yeah, and we've got the Amish in America being raided by the ATF and raided by the police and whoever else is kind of like controlling the laws out there with food. I think it might be the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. For producing their own vegetables and their own milk. It's a ridiculous situation. But I think we need to localize. I also think a barter situation might be great. This is a fantastic way of getting around kind of financial laws and things, because we are regulated with monetary and finances, but there's not a lot they can do about barter. There's not a lot they can do about you fix my roof and I'll give you, X amount of tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff. You can't. How can you regulate that? How as you say, they could try and bring in laws to try and stop you growing stuff, but I would say grow stuff anyway. People need to grow their own foods. There needs to be some kind of barter system. There needs to be a stocking up of essential items just in case, because if we're wrong and everything's absolutely fine and it all turns out great, then the worst that's happened is that you spent a bit of money getting stuff that you need in a case of an emergency. However, if things do go really, really pear-shaped, then you will really need some of that stuff. We're talking like survival stuff. We're talking about with torches, batteries for torches. We're talking compasses. We're talking blankets, foil blankets, canned food, water supply, water filtration system. Basic stuff that if it does go a little bit pear-shaped, we've got some stuff to go on. I've been stocking up on canned stuff, and I've got that all stored up ready. I hope I never have to kind of use it in an emergency, but we'll see. I think though, with the Russia and the Ukraine thing, I've been trying to feel intuitively what I feel about that situation. I don't think it's going to go nuclear. If it does, we're screwed, and that's it. End of humanity. I don't think it's going to get to that stage. There have been some channelings from some people in contact with what you might call ETs, that if put it this way, when a toddler learns, sometimes they have to learn the hard way. So if you're on a bike and you take off the stabilizers, sometimes they, you know, kind of fall off the bike and they learn from that. But if you've got a toddler and they're playing with matches, at some point the parent has got to go in and take the matches off the toddler so they don't burn themselves. If we see humanity as like the toddler, and the nuclear arms race and nuclear Armageddon is playing with matches, at some point a parent might need to come along and stop it. So the channelings that I've heard, that is, if the human race does get to the point where they're about to or do launch nuclear missiles, there is hopefully an ET benevolent race, a good race, that is going to shoot them down or vaporize them or stop them from launching in the first place, to stop that from happening. Because what I think is going on in terms of humanity is we have got different ET factions with different agendas looking at the human race. The bad lot, the dark lot, which seems to be the ones involved in the secret societies and basically controlling the puppets that rule this earth, hence we're being ruled by demons, basically. They're the ones wanting the complete destruction of humanity. You've also got the neutral ones who are just kind of like observing humans and almost seeing us as like kind of like capturing sharks, putting tags in them and releasing them into the wild. You've got the scientific lot. And then you've got the positive lot. The positive lot, I think, will be the ones that step in, that if it does get to a situation of being nuclear, they would probably stop that from happening. Cross fingers. So I don't think it will get nuclear. I don't think Putin wants to get nuclear. The Biden administration, I'm not sure. The Biden are more on the dark side. The Democrats are more on the dark side. They're not love and light. They portray themselves as that, but they're not. Zelensky, my personal view is that I think I came across something saying that he wants to have a preemptive strike against Russia, a nuclear strike against Russia. That's psychotic.
That's not worrying.
It's psychotic. Zelensky, from what I can see, wants World War III. Lunatic. I mean, that goes into all different directions, because you've got the Azov battalion, which is a neo-Nazi battalion in Ukraine. So you've got that going on. I don't think, and I would hope that the Biden administration and the Americans, I don't think that they'll go nuclear with it, but we've just got to pray, because it's getting tense. But I'm going with intuition, I'm going with gut feeling. I don't think it will get to that stage, but I think it might get close to that stage. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let's hope, because also there are some of us that believe that, you know, if there are enough people, that it creates a vibration. If there are enough people desiring something, in other words, not burying the head in the sand, but actually deciding, no, that would be terrible, I don't want that to happen, that there could be a wave that goes against the darkness, if you like, the dark forces and dark energies that seem to be prevailing, even, you know, post-COVID. We don't seem to be completely over it. It's nice to have some kind of normality, but it's not actually normality, really. It's just the appearance of it.
It's one thing to another, isn't it? It's just a whole chain of things that are going on.
And it doesn't seem to be getting better, does it, either? So, you know, I think we've got to stop looking out there, that's my opinion, and to start to look at just myself. What bit can I, you know, because we can't all go out and do the same thing either. What little can I do? What's the tiny thing that I can do? Whether or not it's having a meditation to send light out there, whether or not it's knowing farmers to go and say, I can write a letter to the MP, or whether or not it's actually writing to government, you know, any little thing. Having to form a group.
Yeah, I think one big thing is the word no. No is a very important word. So when we have council saying, oh, we're going to have a 15-minute city now, which is basically like a communist society. So in North Korea, it is illegal for a citizen to travel from one town to the other town without permission from the state. You need state permission. It was the same in Nazi Germany. They had checkpoints and you needed permission to go from one place to another in Nazi Germany. They want 15-minute cities, and Oxford County Council, shame on them, every single one of them should be fired who support 15 minutes cities. They basically 15-minute cities, for those who aren't aware of it, is where you take a city and the idea is all of your amenities and everything that you need is within 15 minutes. And if you go outside of your boundary, your 15-minute boundary, then you get a fine. You get £100 fine or something like that. And it's all about control, and it's about creating this communist society of you can only do something with the state permission. What people need to do is learn one very big word, which is no. No, no, no. They need to go to their councillors and they need to say no. And when these councillors come up for election, oh, vote for me, people should say, if you voted for 15-minute cities, out you go, out you go, out. And people need to learn this word no, because if we don't, there's this thing, I think Churchill might have said it, I can't remember if it was someone else who said it, that for evil to succeed, all it needs is for good men and women to do nothing. Hitler got into power because apathetic people said, oh, it's nothing to do with me, I'll just sit back. Stalin got into power because good people said, oh, it's nothing to do with me, I'll just step back. Now is not the time to step back. Now is the time to challenge these people. And I think with humanity, it's a cyclic thing, it's a cycle. And it's almost like, if we do go along the concept of predeterminism, it could be a thing where the universe is saying, okay, have you learnt your lesson now, humanity, to stand up to oppression? No, you haven't. Okay, well, let's bring it again. Have you learnt the lesson now? No, you haven't. Have you learnt the lesson now? So cyclically, the universe is kind of saying, have you learnt the lesson? And if we haven't learnt the lesson, it comes back round again. And so now we've got it back round again. Now we've got this communist fascistic system, this new world order, this Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum psychopathy, socio-psychopaths that basically want to turn this whole planet into a dystopian nightmare. Now is the time to say no to it.
That's great, and that's thank you very much for that. And that's actually a nice way to end this.
Yeah.
Are there any last things going back to psychic fairs?
Go back to the psychic thing. In terms of the psychic, I do want to kind of plug my own thing, which is Tuned in Events. Anyone that wants to join on Facebook and Instagram, Tuned with a D, Tuned in Events. I also do another podcast called the Paranormal Peepshow, which is on the Paranormal UK radio network with myself and Neil Geddes-Ward. So we do our own little kind of paranormal podcast with all sorts of guests, going deep down many rabbit holes, many conspiracy rabbit holes, where I do have a good old rant. So I do kind of like have this as kind of like a therapy session. So thank you for my therapy session today, because I view all of this stuff and I see all this stuff and I sometimes scream at the television and scream at these psychopathic maniacs. So it's nice to kind of vent and let it all out. But I would say, although it does seem dark and depressing, there is light, there is hope, but the hope lies within every single person that's listening to this. You can do something. You do need to stand up, localize, vocalize, and get in with the fight. We're at war, we're on the front lines, but enjoy the process. At the end of the day, we all pass the spirit, and 100 years from now, our souls will be somewhere else. So who cares? Just enjoy the ride.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. I will put your details down in the description, so if anyone wants to contact you direct or to come to your events, they can just click on the link and they'll get all the info. So that's great. Thank you very much for taking this time. It's lovely to spend this time with you as well. I've really enjoyed it, appreciate it. And I'm hoping I'll be able to see you soon.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, share and subscribe. We love to hear from you. See you next time.